and welcome to another edition of the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show, where this week we are super excited as we delve into Season 2, and as we're taping this, it's before the season. This will get broadcast a little bit during the season. Obviously, coaches are super busy, so we tried to, this Season 2, have some coaches that while you're getting ready for games and doing those things, you can listen to some knowledge as well. We're really excited this week to have head coach at Shadow Ridge High School, Michael Zdebski, on the show. Coach has a long storied career, I believe, as a Hall of Famer in Michigan, if I'm remembering correctly. And we're going to talk to him, and we're really excited to do so and gain some knowledge from him. But before we do that, just want to take a moment to remind everybody that the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show is brought to you by School Funder. School Funder, the only online fundraising company in America that lets you keep all of the money your team raises. We've used them 2 years in a row for our lift-a-thon, kept upwards of $10,000 both times. You would not give away 20% of the wins your team earns, so why give away 20% of the proceeds, which is what many other companies would end up taking? So get in contact with School Funder. They do a great job. Super friendly and really good guys that'll help you out a ton. I know as a head coach as well that fundraising is not always our most favorite thing. So this is, I think, one of the easiest ways to get the most money you can do. So please get in contact with them and let them know that the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show sent you, as it'll help the show. And while you're helping the show, take a moment, please like and subscribe. We're trying to grow our audience as much as possible as we get to talk to coaches and reach different guys around. We've done some different guys in different states now. Obviously, try to focus on many of the great coaches in Arizona, but we've also had a lot of guys from around the country as well on the show. So like, subscribe, share the episode, all that type of stuff. Okay, so getting into the topic at hand, we're going to talk with Coach. And Coach, before we get going a little bit into whatever you're going to share with us today, I want you to take a moment, and obviously you've had a long career, so maybe give us the flyby edition. Tell us a little bit about your football story, playing, coaching journey, everything that got you to the point. Well, not everything, because that would take a little while, but a little version of what your football story is.
Like probably anybody, he started playing football at a very young age, and it was just a great experience, and you want to continue it after high school and after college, and then you figure out the best way to do it is to be a coach. And at that time, I didn't really understand how to get into college coaching, so we figured out how to get into high school coaching through education and teaching, and that's what's evolved over the course of my career. And I've been fortunate that my son, he wanted to get into coaching, my oldest one, and at least I knew how to direct him to get into college football.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. I know you coached in Michigan, a lot of years, a lot of wins, then ended up in Arizona at Hamilton. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started off as a freshman assistant coach a long time ago, and then the following year got a teaching job in another school district where it would be a better opportunity. And then I ended up being the JV head coach there. And then the following year moved up to a varsity assistant coach position. And then hung out there at Berkeley High School for 5 years. We had some pretty good teams, worked with Pat Fox. Pat just won his first state championship back in Michigan with Notre Dame Prep. And he just recently went into the Hall of Fame as well. He's a great person. Just talked to him. He was out of Penn State visiting with my son this past week, so I had a chance to talk to him. And then my wife and I got married, and we built a house out in the Walled Lake area, and always kind of wanted to teach where I lived, so my kids could go to school, relatively close right there, or to the same school, which my son did. And so we moved out that way, took the job at Walled Lake Western, started off as again, back to an assistant, positional coach. And, that was good with me. And then about midway through the first year, took over the defense, and then worked with the defense all the way through 1998. And then in 1999, I was the offensive coordinator. So I've jumped around from positional coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, going back to special teams coordinator. I've done that in and out over the years. And I just try to fit on our staff where we might need a little bit of help right there, where we're kind of the weakest. Right now we have a really nice coaching staff out here at Shadow Ridge High School. And then, going back to the progress, when getting out to Arizona, I was getting up to my 30th year of teaching, and my wife's like, well, what do you want to do when you retire? And I'm like, I don't know. So she's like, well, how about we look at maybe moving out of Michigan? So we started looking around and trying to figure it out. And her father lives in Florida, so kind of looked in that area. Wasn't really much available at that time. And her sister lives in the Houston area, and there happened to be a job there. And then she said she liked the Southwest, and I'm like, the Southwest's pretty big, so you kind of got to pick something. So she picked out Phoenix, and saw the Hamilton job was available, and interviewed for it, and flew out and gave it a shot, and told my principal and AD, hey, I'm going out here for an interview, but I probably don't have a shot getting it because they're a really good program, and they're probably going to hire from within. But then, we came to find out they had some, unfortunate events that happened there. And it kind of opened it up for an outsider coming in to get a fresh start with things. And that's what we did. And then, Jason Wilkie, I know him. He's been a head coach, been an athletic director. He's from Michigan as well. And he took over as the athletic director over at Shadow Ridge High School. And it was a great opportunity to go do that and do something good on that part of town over there in Surprise, Arizona.
Well, Coach, I know I've studied a lot of the stuff Coach Fox has on the Glazier Clinic stuff. I didn't know that he had won his first state championship there. So good for him.
Yeah, we both learned the 8-man front together back 1989, 1990. We went out to it's when the Glazier clinics used to be run by Frank Glazier. And they're totally different than they are right now, which was much better then, because you could actually go there and get a complete system. So we heard he was the head coach at East Carolina, and he was talking about the split six defense, and that's where we kind of got going with 4-4 stuff.
Okay, love it. Also, I know Coach Wilkie quite well. When I was leaving Prescott for a year, when it ended up at Post and Butte, he had talked about coming up here. His son was going to be a freshman, and so I know Coach Wilkie quite well as well. Also, when he was the AD, I believe at Dysart, they came up here to camp. So, he's a good man, good guy to work for, definitely.
He's a West Side lifer.
Yes, he is.
He's been at Colliston. He had a stint over at Valley. So, yeah.
All right, Coach. Well, getting into a little bit of the subject here, we'll talk about a number of different things. Talk to me a little bit about, obviously, great experience, offensive side, defensive side. Talk to me a little bit about your installation process. It can be from an offensive perspective, defensive perspective, but how do you go about installing your system, both from a maybe camp perspective, spring ball, summer ball type deal, to once you get into the season as well?
I think first you have to determine what type of kid you have and philosophically where you want to be in the direction you want to take. And then you got to start small. I think the biggest thing the mistake that people make is they want to do too much, and less is more. A good friend of mine, Bob Wiley, I was just over with him yesterday. We were talking, and even in the NFL, you want to keep things as simple as possible. Now Bob was an offensive line coach, and it does get very, very complicated, but the goal is to keep it very, very simple. And that's the number one thing I talk to our staff about is less is more. And let's be really good at what we do. Let's give ourselves a chance to get enough reps in to be successful at what we do so the kids have confidence in what we do, and they don't have to think while they're executing, because thinking, I believe, slows you down, and it makes you question what you do, so you're not going to be very aggressive. So when you see teams that are making mistakes, You know, a lot of times it's just you're trying to do too much, and you overthink it, and that's it. In terms of like, summer installation, it's, we're really focused on, what we're trying to be good at right now. When we're getting ready for camp, I just sent the coaches an email. I'm like, this is a great week to make sure that we are installing and getting those installations put together so they're organized and sequential and just not all over the place. We put together a matrix of what we want to be good at each year. And, like if the coach says, well, I think we need to maybe look at this and put this in, I'm like, then what are you going to take out? Because you just can't keep adding and adding and adding. Kids just aren't going to be very good at things. Now, maybe there's a special group of kids out there that can handle that stuff, but I think when you sit in the stands as a parent, and whether they win or lose, if they can execute and be where they're supposed to be, I think that's a good thing right there, and that gives you a better chance to win as long as you don't beat yourself. And that's one of the big things we talk about is discipline. And discipline, there's a lot of, branches off of that tree, but, part of discipline is just executing your assignment and doing your job and making sure you can do that. So that in a nutshell is where everything is with all phases of our game. Special teams, the only thing we've worked on since spring ball is punt, kickoff, and extra point field goal. That's it. Punt and kickoff, because those can get you in the most trouble with big returns or, a block kick or something like that. So since spring ball, that's all we've been doing, and it's the same thing. And, we go 4 days a week right now with lifting and 4 days of practice. So, right now I'm getting kickoff 2 days a week, and I'm getting punt 2 days a week, and then we'll a 10-minute periods each practice, and then we'll hit a little 5-minute period each day for extra point field goal. And again, we're working all the sets that we'll use again and again and again. Special teams, the key to that, I believe, is you find the most consistent kids on your team that are there all the time. The worst thing you can have is you constantly change out personnel. So with our players that aren't consistent in attendance to everything, I won't include them in special teams. You can't. Too much change.
Coach, that right there is a gold nugget. Definitely, putting your most reliable guys on special teams is something I'm going to definitely mention to our coaches, because that's hugely important. You got to have guys that are reliable and you can count on there.
You're
moving on.
Everything all the time. Yeah, got it. Keep moving on.
Just gonna ask, how many, you were talking about being able to do things well and being able to do a small number of things well.
Yeah.
How many concepts, let's say run game wise, do you think the average high school team can get good at during a season?
Well, you look at it, and I talked to you look at college teams, you look at NFL teams, and college teams. You look at Missouri. I shared a quote with my offensive coordinator. He's like, if you're going to come to Missouri, you're going to run outside zone. And if you don't like outside zone, don't come to Missouri, basically. So that's what they're going to lay their hat on. And they might have a couple other schemes off it, but again, not too much. I think a good high school team, probably 3 to 5 schemes up front with the run game. I wouldn't go more than 5, because how do you get the reps? And then you break it down into a zone scheme or a gap scheme, and we'll run. Right now we have 2 zone schemes and we have 1, 2, 3 gap schemes, and that's it. So we're just trying to get really good at those things right there. The same thing, with your passing concepts. I think there's that straw that eventually breaks the camel's back, where it's just too much and there's too many routes. And so I think you've got to focus in on, do you want to be a really good play action team? Do you want to be a really good sprint out team? Do you want to be a really good quick passing team? Do you want to be a really good vertical team? But there has to be something there that you make the determination that you want to be very good and better than anyone else at it. Because I think that just builds confidence in your players, because you know what you're going to do. The other thing with that is, I don't care what you're doing, your opponent only has 3 days to get ready. And everyone is a little bit different in everything they do, offensively, defensively, and special teams. So, okay, everybody can say, oh, we know what they're going to do and this and that. Great, the coaches know what they're going to do. It's the players that have to be able to execute those assignments and understand what the other team is doing as well. And the chances of all 11 players on the field at any given time putting as much time in as a coordinator or a head coach is probably slim to none. And even though you have a few people that know what they're doing, the chances of everybody knowing what they're doing is not there. Again, Bob and I just talked about that yesterday, even with NFL players. He's like, you might have 6 to 9 players on an NFL team that do everything right and study everything right and are perfect in everything they do. You know, the Ray Lewis type of preparation mentality right there. But not all of them are going to do it even at that level. And they're getting paid a good chunk of change. And you can say the same thing at the collegiate level, and you can say the same thing at the high school level. You know, in the high school level, we probably have the least amount of time for preparation of anyone because those kids are in school. You know, most of the coaches are teaching, or the coaches are, they have their jobs. So the preparation time is minimal. And then you have your weekend time to get ready for it. But you know as well as I do, there's a number of coaches on any staff. They might go to a Cardinals game, or they might be going to a Sun Devil game, or they're planting their tail on the couch and they're watching college football all day. So what's their level of preparation? So that's why I say just be good at what you do. Again, when I talk to my son, he's like the best teams they play, like Texas. He's like, when they were getting ready for Texas last year, he's like, they do what they do. They run their certain plays on certain formations and certain personnel packages, and they're really good at it. All right, and you got to figure it out and try to adjust and be ready to go. But again, I think that's why Steve's very good at the University of Texas.
Absolutely. Remind me of where your son's coaching at again, Coach?
He's at Penn State right now. He was at Ohio State for the last, was it 2 years or 3 years? 2 or 3. Yeah.
Did he go with Coach Knowles over there? Is he on the defensive side? Or?
Yeah, he's on the defensive side. He was with Knowles at Oklahoma State, and then Knowles took him to Ohio State, and now Knowles brought him along to Penn State. Before that, he GA'd at the University of Wisconsin with Paul Christ.
Love it, Coach. I really enjoy it. Coach Chris did a great job at Wisconsin. I think they're probably longing for that right now a little bit.
I would concur with that statement right there. No, they're not. And, you know, that's what happens when a new AD comes in and, you know, he thinks he's pretty smart and wants to make changes because he wants his guy. Well, he has his guy now because he's the one that made that decision.
Very, very true, Coach. Moving a little bit on the defense side, and this is the same kind of realm of question because we've had different guys talk about this. And admittedly, I coach at the 4A level, and I will tell you right now, I can assuredly tell you can win a state championship at the 4A level with 1, maybe 2 coverages. How many do you think you need at a high 6A level? Because this answer's been all over the place. There's guys that'll carry 5, 6, 7, 8 coverages, and there's guys that say we run 1 or 2, and we'll major in those. How many coverages do you think you can carry?
When we played Chandler and when Chandler was rolling, they played 3 coverages. They played cover 3, cover 1, and 0. That's all they did. I don't care what they say, how you break it down, how you look at it. When they kind of got off the path defensively, they started to do some 2-shell stuff, right? So they had 1 primary zone, 1 man free, and 1 0 coverage. And I think that's what you can go to work with right there. Right now we major in 1 2 deep, and we have 1 adjustment. We'll roll into a cover 3, and that's cover 1 and cover 0. I think any more than that, again, it's how do you attain the reps? And we're platooning now. Now, last year we didn't platoon because we really didn't know the kids, and we had to get to know the kids. And then part of it there, too, was some of the coaches didn't believe in platooning. And then they found out real fast that, I wouldn't say real fast, but at some point in time that you really can't get good at much because you're spending half your time on offense and half your time on defense. When your opponents are all doing that, and it's all relative and apples to apples, yeah, I think you can have kids go both ways. But when you're playing teams that are strictly platooning, and they're getting, a full 4 days of offense in and a full 4 days of defense in, and you might have a kid or two that has spot duty here or there. He's probably a starter the year before or a 2-year starter at a different position. Okay. But when you're playing other teams that platoon and you don't platoon, they're going to run you in the ground because you're going to have diminished results of the players at positions, either in the form of conditioning, where they're not running as fast or running, or they're making mental mistakes. It's either the physical, mental, one of those two right there. But when you start seeing a kid start to make mistakes that's never made mistakes because he's trying to do both sides of the ball, yeah, you're kind of stuck. Because the coaches are going to coach like you're playing one position on one side. Well, it doesn't always work for most kids. Some kids it can work. But like I said, if you're going apples to apples, yeah, you don't have to platoon. But when you're playing 6A, I really believe you need to get the proper reps to compete with your opponents physically and mentally, and that's including your cardiovascular conditioning. And the health and well-being of the player, because you're going both ways. You're picking up more reps. More reps are more opportunities to get banged up. So I think you have more durability for a long season as well when you do platoon. So we've gone to that now, and we have a couple of kids that we work with on both sides right there. But again, they have to be dependable players. They have to be smart players. But it's really tough to do.
Well, Coach, one of the things that I've talked a little bit about to a couple different coaches on here is practice planning. I could very much easily go back to being an assistant. I don't care what we ran on offense, defense, special teams, but the toughest thing I would have trouble giving up control is control of the practice plan. So walk me through a typical practice, how you guys go about doing it with your both in terms of your period length, different things like that. And maybe, I'm sure at various points in your career, you've been platoon and where you've had to do offense and defense. So maybe talk a little bit about the differences in those in your practice plan as well.
Well, right now in the summer, we open up with a 20-minute individual period, and then I'll move into a 10-minute special teams period, and then we go 15 minutes inside run, 15 minutes of Skelly, 15 minutes of team. So we hit that, and we finish with a 5-minute extra point field goal. That's our routine Monday through Thursday right now. And our focus, like offensively on Mondays and Wednesdays we're zone scheme, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays we're gap schemes. With in terms of when we're talking about the run game, and the passing game can be broken up as such as well, into basically 2-day increments. I think that forces you to get good at something right there when you stick with those things right there, because again, in the fall you only have so much time to prepare. Defensively, we do the same thing right there. We philosophically we are a 3-3-5, and basically the reason we're a 3-3-5 is because we don't have enough linemen. And I think any program in the state of Arizona that has linemen, you're going to be good. Basher right now has a surplus of linemen. They have a lot of them, and as do the better schools in Arizona. When we've played Liberty recently, they have a lot of top-notch linemen, just like they do right now as well. And I think that's the number one thing that makes any program go, are the kids up front. So we made the decision, because I've been a 4-man front person basically my whole life, but we did go to the 3-man front because of necessity with the number of linemen that we do have. And I wouldn't say that on the defensive side of it anyhow, I'd say we might have one kid that's probably your prototypical defensive lineman. And then other than that, it looks like linebackers in a three-point stance. So that's how we've kind of fit our scheme. You're talking about going back to your last question as well. And offensively and defensively, we're always looking at that. So then the practice, you look at, okay, what do we need to get, good at? Now, when we get to camp, we'll practice 11 times at camp. And we use the evening practices each night strictly for special teams. And then the positional coaches are just stealing individual time while they're there. Our other 3 practices throughout the day, because we'll practice at 5:30 in the morning for 90 minutes, and then we'll practice again at 9:30 in the morning for 90 minutes, and then we'll practice in the afternoon for a 90-minute practice. I like to keep the time under 2 hours. I think once you go over 2 hours, I don't know if you've been to college practice, and those things can go really, really long with a lot of reps. For our kids, and you ever listen to Chip Kelly? Chip is really smart and understands education and teaching and learning. And there's only so much time you can be out there. If you listen to Tony Anise talk at all, he thinks keeping those practices pretty short and pretty concise is a good thing. And that way, as a coach, you're not getting too crazy with everything you do, and it forces you to focus on the things that you want to be really, really good at and break things up into those periods. I think the one thing we do really, really well with our periods is we break everything into situations for the most part, rather than just running plays to run plays. There's time for that, for inside run, a little bit when you just want to focus on what you're going to do that day. But I think we break everything else up into situations. It's third and short, it's goal line, it's overtime. That way, if we get to a game in overtime, you know what to do. The kids understand the rules. You're not teaching it to them there. So we're trying to hit every possible situation that we can in a practice, in a week. That way, when a game occurs, there's nothing that we haven't seen that we're not prepared for situational wise. And then the offense and the defense, you kind of make those things work based on those situations and the type of calls that you need to be successful with your particular players.
Coach, I love it. And like most guys, I have definitely studied some of Coach Anise's stuff at Ferris State. They got so much cool stuff going on there. Obviously, they won 3 of 4 national championships.
Yeah, and I've known Tony since, 80s.
I don't know him at all, but I saw him speak at a clinic. He's certainly quite colorful. Definitely.
Yes, he is.
You see him in those clinic talks, and then you see him in a room, and he's man, he lets it fly a little bit there when he's in a room.
Yes. No, and he's won everywhere he's been, from high school to junior college to Ferris State University, and he's a really good person. He'll share anything with you. He's helped us a lot offensively. That's when we first started running all of our power read stuff. We got that from him back in, when we start running power read, probably 2010-ish, something like that. Started running all that power read stuff.
One of the wrinkles he does about power read that really helped us was talking about the running back running the 200, as we call it, or bowing out a little bit away from the line of scrimmage to get to those corners. We didn't teach it like that, and since we added that, it really, really is helpful. We'll have a coach or a cone stand there so the running back knows when he comes flat, he's going to bow that thing out to get out there to the edge a little bit on that jet sweep action or of the power read, which I thought was interesting. Coach, you mentioned 3-3-5 team on defense. We also run the 3-3-5. So I got to ask you, Coach, because at times I do think some of the trips and tray stuff give us trouble. What's your guys' adjustment as a 3-3-5 team when you see a trips type look?
We have 2 adjustments. One, we'll just maintain that 2 shell, and we use that center field player to be the extra player on that number 3 receiver right there. Do you kick your backers when they go 3 by 1?
We kind of push them and end up more in a 3-4 type look.
Yep,
So
that's what we end up in as well right there. The whole thing is whether we need to keep that one overhang. For us, it's a sandbacker. If we're okay with moving the sandbacker out to between 2 and 3, then what we call is poach, and we just maintain that 2 read concept over 1 and 2, and we'll take that center field player and just read number 3 vertical and make sure we don't get hit on a pipe shot there. And the other thing that we do is we'll run mini. I don't know if you do that, where you lock the corner up to the 3 receiver side, and then we're going to roll it and play a 2 shell over 3 to 2, and that allows us to keep that sandbacker tighter to the box right there. That's about the 2 major things we do.
Yeah, we used to do mini. We called it, I think, Zulu or something. But yeah, we used to do a little bit of that. Haven't done quite as much of that now. We've ended up kind of soloing the backside, but we've made sure our best kid is on the backside for those teams that kind of want to put their dude over there. But I always like hearing coaches' perspectives on that, because I do think it can give you a little bit of trouble in the 3-3-5. But we're going to get to the part, Coach, where you're going to share with us anything you're willing to talk about, and I am going to shut up and I'll ask questions as we go through it. So take it away, Coach.
Sure thing. There's there's a couple things that we talk about, and you talked about earlier, and I put this together a while back, and then, all right, now how do I share this again? Right here.
There's at the bottom there, it'll say share, and then you push screen. We see your screen. Now we don't see it, but if you go to, it's share, and there's a little arrow pointed up, and it says screen. You click it, and then whatever you have on your screen, it'll kind of show you which one you want to share, and you click that, and you're good to go.
All right.
We see it now. It says, please keep this tab open.
Right. Okay, you got to help me out here again and where to get. Oh, please keep the tab open right there. You see that?
Yeah. Yep, I see it.
Do you see this? You're not see. Oh, wait. Share this tab instead.
Yeah, I think you got to share. There, I see it. Creating your offense, Shadow Ridge High School.
Yeah. So something I did years ago to help our youth program out, and I'm going to go over this with my staff on July 10th when we have a short meeting. And you can apply this to defense as well with what you're doing or special teams. And I just think these are some important things to consider with everything you're doing. And I tell them we want the parents and fans and spectators to leave the game saying our team executed the plays, the kids knew what they were doing, and they looked well coached. And we're good at what we do. I think as a coach, you can't blame the players. And then when I was talking to Bob yesterday, Joe Paterno used to have a sign right off or over his desk. It's like, don't blame the players. You got to coach who you have. And I think you get too many coaches that all they do is complain about what they don't have. You coach who you have. You coach the players that are there and that want to get better. And as a coach, with everything you do, and you've heard this before, you either coach it or you allow it. If kids are making mistakes, you're allowing them to make mistakes, or you should be correcting it each and every play. And I think as a coach, there's too many people that they're spectators. They watch. I mean, you can either give a kid a pat on the back every single play, or you should be correcting something every single play. But if you're not doing one of those two things, you're really not doing your job as a coach. So again, be good at what you do. Don't add until you become a perfectionist at what you do. And then be careful to not overload the kids. How many plays can you run in a game? How many times can you run a certain play? When you go back and look at what you've done, and then at the end of every year and during the season, we'll keep track of what we're doing offensively, defensively. And when you start seeing these plays you run one time, it's like, why? What we could get more reps at what we really need to be good at. And, people have different views and vision on that, but I know defensively, we're going to sit down, and we've already been breaking down our opponents, really focusing on the first 3 games. But it's like, what are they good at? Okay, make them play, if they're left-handed, make them play right-handed. So whatever their top 5 plays are, focus on that, get really, really good at that. If they beat you on something else, bless their hearts, But you go to the defense, what do you want to do? You want to be able to defend the run, what they do best, right? And then stay on top of routes. If you're playing zone and they're checking it down, I think you've done a really good job. Just don't get beat on top. There's situations that you're tired of the short passing game. We'll start playing some man. And if you want to bring some pressure, bring some pressure. But anyhow, I think this creates your game plan because you look at how many plays are you going to get in a game. And you can take an average of the last season and look at, I'm going to get 40 to 50 plays, I'm getting 60 plays, whatever it may be. Well, how many times do you want to run inside zone? How many times do you want to run outside zone? How many times do you want to run a screen? How many times do you want to take a vertical shot? How many times are you going to be in your short yardage offense? And it really dictates the amount of reps you need in practice to run it in a game right there. So I think that really helps. For an offensive structure, I think you got to see this goes back to my wing T background right here. In the wing T, you have a primary play, a complementary play, a counter, and a play action pass. That's what the offense is based on. And when you see a lot of these schemes that are spread per se, it's still wing T because it's just a philosophy. So anyhow, so we want to make sure we have a primary play for what we have, a complementary to that play. We make sure we have a counter in there. We do run a trick period. We got that from Boise State years ago. Well, we'll just take 5 minutes into practice, and we're just going to knock those trick plays out each day, just 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Could be pre-practice, could be post, could be in the middle, could be while there's a defensive special team going on. But we're going to take 5 minutes all the time. And then, screen and draw. We have a 5-minute period every day that we're working screen and draw, screen and draw, screen and draw, screen and draw. Then you look at your 3-step, 5-step, sprint out, play action. You don't have to do all those things, but I think that's how you can compartmentalize it. And you might pick out 1 or 2 things that you're going to run in those concepts that you feel that you need to be successful. But again, not to overdo it where you're doing too much. Offensive line, we only do what they can do. That's it. Because if those guys can't execute, you're not beating anybody. Because it all starts up front. So you can't overload the offensive linemen. That way they'll play fast and they play with confidence. I'm constantly looking at what can we take out. What can we do less? What are we not good at yet? What don't we understand? Because if it's just too much on their plate, then don't do it. If they think they're going to play slow, and you don't want those kids playing slow. Those kids have to play with confidence, and they got to get after it because you're not going to win without the kids up front. Formation philosophy always looked at, there's benefits of no motion and there's benefits of motion and shifts. When you don't motion, you can see how the defense is going to align. You can play fast. I think you get more offense, you get more reps in practice, and there's probably a few more things you can do because you've limited your formations, and you can check into plays. So there's a lot of things by scanning that defense and what they do. And as much as defensive coordinators in high school want to say they're disguising coverage, they don't. They really don't. It's minimal, if at all. And if they're seeing too much, they're not going to do it. Motion and shifting. Now, you can create a new formation, obviously, by motion or a shift. I like it because it reduces the defensive process time. They see what they're going to do. They know what they're going to do. They see the formation. They're talking about, hey, we're going to do this, and they do this. And then you create a new formation, and everything changed. And that even goes from the offset back starting on the left to the right. It's that simple. Again, reducing the process time for them is important. that's how you create defensive confusion. Because if they are making a check, if they're a check system team, and you start off in a formation and they make a check and now you shift to a new formation or motion to a new formation, you're requiring them to communicate. And one of the greatest weaknesses of any team is communication. So you can create confusion on the defense and really create big plays as a result of half the defense is making one check, the other half doesn't make the check, so it's not coordinated anymore on what they're trying to accomplish as a defense. I think through manipulating formations, you can outnumber your opponent at the point of attack. Some coaches will not adapt, adjust, they don't move. Some do. But again, it's anything you're trying to do you're trying to gain a numeric advantage in what they do. That's why you do all your film preparation on the weekend, because you look at how do they line up to 2x2, how do they line up to 3x1, how do they line up to empty, how do they line up to a 3-back, 2 tight end set. And then the good thing about all that is you start in one formation, shift to another. Again, you're creating, I think, a reduction of process time with your opponent. And sometimes it'll create a little defense between the front and the coverage, because somebody might just say, guys, they just do too much. We're shifting, we're checking, we can't check. We just have to play what's there because there's too much stuff going on. And when they're making mistake after mistake in practice, I mean, that's kind of what you want right there. Then you can go back to, you can just go fast, you don't have to motion, you don't have to shift, because you know what they're going to be in. So that to me is the advantage right there, and I think it's something to consider with your formation philosophy, with what you do. Sunday staff meetings, again, I think it's important to determine the opponent's strengths, schemes, and plays. And you have to look at the opponent's weaknesses in schemes and players. And you have to attack players. You have to determine who's the worst defensive lineman, who's the worst linebacker, who's the worst safety, who's the worst corner. Because there's times that you have to go after those kids. Because if you're constantly throwing at their best defender, well, if it's not working, then that's on you. And I think with your players, your best players have to get the ball. And I've worked with, some guys that they're like, nope, we're just going to run our offense, and whoever gets the ball, they get the ball. Well, if you got a receiver that's going to USC and he touches the ball one time in a game, there's something wrong with that. So you have to get the ball to your best players. The best offensive coordinators I've been with, they have that little part on their cheat sheet that says, how am I getting the ball to this kid? And they've got at least about a half a dozen plays that here's how we're going to get them the ball, be it run, pass, or whatever it is. But when it comes to something important, you want to get the ball to your best players somehow, some way. I think so anyhow. So you look at how they're going to line up against formations. You look at how will they defend certain plays and how they react to motion. Some people do a good job of it. Some people do a god-awful job of it, with everything that they do right there. What are we going to focus on this week? What are we going to be good at? If it doesn't look good on paper, move on. Go to something else. And again, I think that's what Wing T taught me is I used to go listen to, Tubby Raymond and Ted Kempsky, and somebody raise a question and say, well, hey, how do I run this play against this front and this coverage? And he'd look at it and he'd like, no, just stop running that and go to this. Because between the crossbuck series and the belly series and the down series, between one of those concepts you can really focus on and open up in a game because it's easier to run. Because if they're loading up to stop buck sweep, well then don't run buck sweep right now until they unload that front. Run trap, run waggle. And it can be the same for the belly and the down series. So I'm always like, if they're really loading up on inside zone, well, don't run inside zone. Hey, let's run outside zone. Let's go to gap scheme, something that's more successful. And just because one thing is really good one week doesn't mean it's going to be really good the next, because part of it is how the defense is going to line up, what the defense decides they really want to take away, but then they're going to give you something else. And like I said in the beginning, less is more. Be good at what you do. Have just enough into, sometimes it's like you can tell the offense what you're doing, and if you're that good at executing what you're doing, or I should say you can tell the defense, hey, we're going to run this play right now. When you're really good, it doesn't matter. You out-execute them. And if you have better kids, yeah, obviously you can really do that. Practices, periods, it says 5 minutes, but we'll go 10, but nothing more than that. I think again, for the attention span and the focus to what you have. You stick to your plan in practice. Coordinators have to tell their positional coaches the drill work that they want to complete in that period of time. I think the worst coordinators are the ones that, hey, just do what you want over there. Well, shoot, the guy might just run ball drills all week, and he never does a single stock blocking drill. Or you might be playing man coverage 40% of the time, but your guy never does a man drill. So your kids aren't going to be very good at it. So you stick to your plan, but as a coordinator, you have to make sure the positional coaches are doing exactly what you need done. And that's the role of a good assistant coach, right? A good assistant coach is, coach, what do you need me to do? What are we going to get done here today? Okay, all right. You get your meetings done on the weekends when you set the plan. Once you leave the room and you set the plan, you stick to the plan. Group run periods, that's what we would focus on in those things. Group pass periods, we would focus on that right there. Now something that we've done a little bit more in the group run period, when we're playing the scout defense, we've really made it a play action pass period. Run and play action pass. Because that way those kids just can't load up on the run. And it ends up being with a few more bodies right there too. Honestly, it probably ends up being more 11-on-11 work right there. Because your kids need to block on the perimeter right there. But then you have your group pass period and what you want to focus on there, trick period like we talked about before in practice, team periods, but they really have to be situational periods, not just running through things to run through things. Now, if it's your openers, your 1st and 10, that's a good team period. If it's your 3rd and long, 3rd and short, 3rd and medium, that's a good thing. But whatever you want to focus on, I just don't think you should run around and just run plays to run plays. It has to have a purpose to what you're doing. And then at the end of the day, if you film it, you got to look at you're getting enough reps at the play you want to be good at. A thing I learned from a friend of mine, he was defense coordinator at Western Michigan. And we'd sit around talk about coverage and different concepts. And his quote was, it all has a merit, but at what cost? Which means that it's all good. Everything's good, right? Every concept, every one you listen to, it's really good stuff. But when you do too much, there's a cost. So again, you have to be good at what you do and really scale it back and determine who you want to be. I've worked with one coach in the past that, the guy knew everything about everything. He can tell you what Georgia does, Tennessee does, USC, Texas A&M, and on and on and on and on and on. And then it was like, hey, but what are we going to be good at? And it made it very difficult for him to really hone in on what we're going to be good at because there's so many good ideas out there. But at some point, you just got to sit down and say, this is who we are. More can be less. Again, because you're not really good at what you do. You can go out and say, hey, we run these 6 coverages, 7 coverages, and we run these 8 to 10 blitzes, and, we run all this stuff on offense, and, all right, if you're bringing home hardware and you're winning, yeah, okay, that's great. But if you're not, and you're just talking about all the things that you do, that's where you fall right there. And again, what do you hang your hat on, right? When someone plays you, and they're like, dude, you better stop this, or they're going to run it down your throat, or they're going to throw it 10, 15 times at you. Defensively, this is who they are, right? This is their base front. This is what they do. This is how they're going to defend it. And you defend it better than anybody else. And to me, when I watch the really good teams, and when you watch them play, You know what you're going to get, and they're very good at a few things right there. Game day script, I think these things you got to make sure you have: down and distance, red zone, goal line, formation, defensive alignment, coverage, home runs, explosives. And then don't forget, you need to have those sections on the script of how am I getting the ball to my best player? Okay, who's your number one player? Maybe you're fortunate you have two really good players, okay, and you haven't gotten them the ball, because you really need to be conscientious that your best players are very involved in the game right off the bat. I think you see it from the NFL to college to high school. If your best players aren't involved in the game, what are you doing? Them using them as a decoy? I mean, that makes no sense. But there are people that end up doing that, which you don't want to. Press box communication. For me, the biggest thing is they're down in distance and hash. Are you finding any tendencies? So we'll send our guys up there with 4 sets of material, pages, scripts, whatever, and we'll keep track of what are they doing on defense by down and distance and hash. Are we finding any patterns? Then we're looking at how do they line up in our formations. So are they checking into things? And then we look at series sequence. You know what I mean? Are they this defense first play, second play, third play? So when you start to look at sequentially, are you seeing a pattern? And then if you do anything with personnel, or they subbing in with personnel and they're only doing one thing, So I think between those 4 observances with your people in the box, by down and distance, formation, sequence, and their personnel, I think somehow, some way you can get a beat on what they're doing and when they're going to do it during the game. And some teams may do the same thing week to week. Some teams that's what they do against you. And that's why it's so important to self-scout from the year before. And you really want to get those things done in December and January, the self-scouting from the year before, so you know what did that team do against you. Because it might be just a you thing when they play your school and your offense or your defense, this is what they do. And they may not do it against everybody else. But just things to consider there. When you look at attacking offense, your game plan, all right, how many defenders do they have in the box? Right? Are they a 5, 6, or a 7? All right, and what are you going to do about it? Coverage attacks, I think you got to have something in there. So you might have planned for cover 2 all week, and all of a sudden they come out and cover 3. But on that play script, you have that little section. Here's like our 5 best things if we see cover 3, right? Or you may have prepped for cover 3 all week, and you see 2 deep. And the same thing with 5 and 6 and 7 in the box. If they go in that direction, what are you going to do? And you kind of got a short, separate plan that is generic for any opponent that you may see. Again, if they come out in man, they come out in blitz, and it takes some time to think about it, but what are maybe your 5 best plays against blitz, 5 best plays against man, 2 deep, 3 deep, 7, 6, and 5 in the box? What are you going to do if they do that? So that way, if you're not prepared, you are prepared, because you've done this before and you said that these are the best things you can do, regardless of who you play. I think Lincoln Riley, he likes to look at his offense that, just as Mike Leach did, it doesn't matter who we're playing, this is what we do. And because everything we do works against everything. Some of those air raid concepts, they don't care if you're playing cover 2, cover 3, man, 2-man, man, whatever it is. It's what they do. They are going to run those concepts across the board. And I think that's a good thing to have right there, that if you can, run what you run no matter what, it's probably pretty good. You're in pretty good shape right there. Why do you run a certain system? I think it needs to fit your players. I don't think you can be a really good spread team if you don't have a kid that can throw the ball. I don't think you can be a good read option team if you don't have a quarterback that can run. Now you want to be a spread team, your quarterback can't run, but he can throw. Well, you run protected RPOs. You got a kid like Tony has at Ferris State that's going to be 6'4", 230. Okay, he's going to run veer. He's going to run midline. He's going to run power read. And he's going to run his quarterback. And if he's got a backup, that's the other thing you have to look at. Do you have a good backup? If you don't have a good backup, you probably don't want to run a lot of unprotected RPOs. Are you a better three-back team? Are you, just like defense? Can you play a four-man front? Can you play a five-man front? Do you got to play a three-man front? So whatever system you choose, it's got to fit your players. It's got to fit the field conditions that you have. Back in the Midwest, if you have grass and it's not well maintained, you got to take that. That's why you see some of those teams run 2 tight ends, 3 backs, right? The grass is high. It looks like the cows were just out there the day before and the sheep. Sometimes the watering conditions and where you're at, it's very wet, so your field is constantly. It's like you live by a swamp or something like that. It's just not real good. Now, with most teams having turf now, we're in pretty good shape. Out in the desert, it's dry. You might get a little bit of wind, but that's about it. It's got to fit your coaching staff too. Coaches are always they don't have the time as the head coach or the coordinators to work. So if you change, you got to understand that it's really hard on all the assistant coaches and your lower level coaches to learn what you're going to do and all the changes because they just don't have the time. It's not like we're a bunch of college coaches and we're sitting in rooms all day and we have a chance to meet and learn and talk and go over things. We don't have that kind of time. You're talking minutes, hours if you're lucky, in a week, maybe a month. So it's got to fit your coaching staff and kind of what they know. And, for me, when I first got started, we brought them in. We taught it. We put everything out there, but we're in. We really can't change much now because it's what our guys know. Preparing your players for the high school program. I think that's more of a youth football thing. Like we're fortunate this year. Our youth program is going to really start a junior Stallions team for us, and they're going to run. They're going to use our terminology, our offense, our defense. With that team coming into high school. So that's really going to help us, but it's really going to help those kids too. And that's why you just can't change year to year because who's going to follow you then? You can't reteach everything. You never get good at anything. Bottom line, all your coaches must be on the same page at the end of the day, whether they like it or not. Okay? And it won't, they can't be the voice of discontent on the field or in the community, or you're never going to get kids. So they either buy in it, and it's they don't have a choice. It's like, this is what we do, this is how we do it. You don't like it, coach somewhere else. But they have to buy in. There's a few things that, like when I started with the coaches here, the number one thing I talked to them about was loyalty. Okay, we need people that are going to be loyal because I'm going to be loyal to them, and I think that's a big thing. And that it doesn't matter what other people think, as long as you got good people that are loyal to the school and loyal to the program, you're in good shape because then people aren't going to go out and try to sabotage the entire program. It's a good thing right there. Final thoughts: be good at what you do. Keep it simple. So that way it's fun for the kids. Kids know what they're doing. Edification is a big thing that we talk about. I don't know if you've heard that word before. But to us, edification is how we build each other up. Our quarterback, when we're talking to other people, man, he's a great kid. He's a great student. He's a great leader. My offensive and defensive coordinators are great people. They work extremely hard. Our assistant coaches are always there for the kids, and they're meticulous and they're detailed. But you are just saying great things about the people involved in your program to people outside the program, and you're building each other up all the time. Again, coach someone every play. Focus on your position and only correct your position, right? Don't be the receiver coach and you're trying to tell the offensive line what to do, right? Don't be the running back coach and telling the defensive back, hey, you should be doing it like this. That's not your job. Coach your kids, focus on your kids. So this is a little thing we're going to go through with our coaches, again, July 10th, because I came across this, just kind of looking before we spoke, and it's always a good thing to come back to remind people of how you got to practice and how you got to be and the things you got to do for us to have a chance to be successful.
Coach, I was taking notes that whole time because there was just a lot of really, really, really good stuff. Definitely, I'll probably be asking you to send me this so I can maybe go through it with our coaches because there was so much good stuff in there. I don't want to break down all of it, but everything in there was some really great wisdom there, so I really appreciate it. The first book I ever read was Tubby Raymond's An Order of Football. I almost think that should be like a required reading for new coaches when you get into it. The other thing that I talk about our guys all the time is whether or not you're a wing T coach, I am a huge on series-based football, which is a little bit of kind of what you alluded to there. So really, really appreciate your time, Coach. I know that the Stallions are in good hands, and I'm looking forward to watch you continue to build that program. And thank you again for joining us. I'll definitely be contacting the off season. We'd love to have you on again because there was a ton of stuff that I really found valuable, and I know coaches out there listening will as well. So hope everybody's season's going well, and we'll see you again next time for another edition of the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show.